And thanks, Sean. So yeah, good evening, everybody. My name's Sam Wenman, and yeah, I work here at the University of Bath. We've also got today my colleague Jane joining us. She will just be sort of voice in the background. She's my producer for this particular software. It helps to have someone in the background move things around as you need it. So hello, Jane.
Hello, Sam. Hello, everybody.
Another thing Jane will be doing, so I should explain, this is quite an interactive session. So we would like questions, as Sean just mentioned there. If you've got questions throughout the session, you can pop them in the chat. So you should somewhere see the sort of chat function on your screen. Be able to go in there, pop in a question. Jane will see them. If it's something that she feels is good for just to save up to the end, then we'll save it up to the end, and she can fire those questions to me at the end. But if they're it's just something personal that you sort of quick response, she'll get right back to you as she can. The session today, what I will do is there'll be a number of things happening. So basically, you'll have me talking, but there are times where we'll go to a bit of sort of audio visual sort of animated bits, and you'll listen to some information and then come back to me and I will explain it in more detail. And you may have been sent out some worksheets prior to this. If you have received them, brilliant, but no problem if you haven't. Just please have a pen and paper around so you can just jot down notes, because essentially it's just making a few notes. And I will call on you a couple of times to make a few notes just to practice some of the things that we're discussing in the session. Okay, so moving on. Right, so these are the things that we're going to be covering in this session. As I say, it's a practical session. I'm really glad you're joining us, both whether it's in the evening, as Jan's just said, after a long day's work of school, but also at this time, it's a really good session to be doing these personal statement sessions, because it might seem a little way away. But the techniques that I'm going to teach you today are very much based around starting early and doing the techniques that I'm about to teach in tandem with the research you should be doing around the universities themselves and the courses that you're interested in. So it goes kind of side by side with that. So the first thing we're going to look at is kind of an overview of personal statements and why they're important. But then I'm going to start looking at those techniques and talk about research and how you can go about your research for finding out about courses and universities, and use these techniques to great effect to make some notes that will be really useful further down the line. And I'm going to look at as well sort of the important parts of personal statements, and just looking at what makes a kind of good paragraph, and tie that to these research techniques that I'm going to teach you. And finally, we might have a bit of time for a sort of reflection on how to sort of start writing, putting pen to paper and thinking about what goes in sort of introductions and conclusions, as well as the main core part of the personal statement. So I'm going to do my first sort of audio visual sort of little bit of the presentation. So if you can just sit back and listen to this.
So first of all, let's try and understand where the personal statement fits inside your UCAS application. Your application to university will involve you filling out 5 sections that get sent to the institutions before you start a course, and in order for them to consider whether to make you an offer. This is all done online through the UCAS website. 4 of these sections are detailed factual information about you, your education, your work history, as well as the courses you're applying to. Universities do not get to see which other universities you make an application to. All of the sections are used to decide if an offer should be made, but the personal statement is the only one that's free form, and which includes your thoughts and reflections on the merits of your various experiences and what it is you can bring to the table, as it were, beyond and above the information in the rest of the application. So what exactly is a personal statement? Well, from a purely practical perspective, it is a written piece of work with a maximum of 4,000 characters, or around 47 lines. It's effectively a side of A4 typed in paragraphs and in around a size 12 or 13 font, much like the one in the picture. As we've just heard, it is the only place on the application for you to put across an argument of what makes you the right person for the course you're applying to. It must therefore demonstrate very specifically why that is the case. It is in effect a sales pitch on your behalf. Bear in mind, is likely to be read by more than one person at each of the universities you apply to. Perhaps it will be an academic in a department or admissions staff external to those departments. It therefore needs to be written in a way that is accessible to everyone. Okay, so why is it important? Well, for many courses and universities, it may be the only opportunity you have in the application process to communicate directly to the people making the decisions. For example, unless you are a BTEC student, the University of Bath only has a couple of courses that will ask you to take an interview. However, where courses do interview, the personal statement will likely be used as the basis of the interview and will be a point of reference for the interviewers. Another important use of personal statements is post-application. On results day, many courses won't simply refuse students who narrowly miss the grades required to meet their offer, but they will revisit their application, take another look at the personal statement, and consider if they still feel they want to give a place to that applicant. So you can see, the personal statement is a central part of the UCAS application, and while the degree to which that is true varies from institution to institution, the research techniques we will show you today, and which are required to write an effective personal statement, are exactly the same as those we would recommend in preparation for an interview. So the techniques you'll learn today will be beneficial for both processes. When thinking about the content of a personal statement, you should approach it exactly like an interview. Ask yourself, why do you want to study this subject? And what makes you the right person for the course? Your personal statement should answer this question, so you should keep it in mind as you research, plan, and write it. To answer that question, you'll need to do two things. You'll need to demonstrate your understanding of the subject and its requirements, as well as demonstrate that you have the desirable experience, skills, knowledge, and qualities to meet those requirements. In order to do that, you first need to embark on thorough research using the techniques which we will cover today, and you'll also need to ensure that you actually have the relevant levels of expected experience, skills, and knowledge. There are many things you can be doing right now to boost your application and gain valuable and relevant experience. If you want to find out more about what you can be doing, watch our video on standing out in competitive universities, which can be found on our online resource hub.
Okay, so that little sort of section, I realise that perhaps audio visual section is perhaps not quite the right terminology for it, but that sort of recorded part of the presentation, you can see quite clearly the importance of the personal statement in your application. It's
Sam, could I just stop you? Sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt you mid-flow. Somebody's made a comment that what they can see on the screen is very small. Are you able to go into full screen present mode on your?
Bear with me.
It's very, very small. I think Sian said she couldn't see, and I don't know whether other students have got the same issue, but
Let me see.
sorry, you're in mid-flow there. So.
No, it's okay. I might need to change the screen I'm sharing on and change the display. One second. And then change.
That's better. So.
Let me change. I'm going to stop sharing. Over this, guys.
You clicked on something then, and it did actually go larger. That's better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's better. That's much
You got
bigger.
that? Okay.
Thank you very
cool.
much.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem. So the as I was saying, so it's an important part of your application. Not all universities will, as I was saying there, necessarily interview. So it then becomes really, really vital, a central part. Others might do, and then it's the basis of the interview. So. But the thing to get your head around is that it is it's quite a nuanced piece of work, and it is to do one effectively, you've really got to be able to think about what makes a good student in the subject that you're applying for, and that's the key thing. You want to sell yourself and be able to show that you are the student who's got those skills, got those qualities, got those experiences that we're looking for. So then that comes back to, as we were saying in the last slide of that part, was all comes down to research and the importance of research at this stage. So If you've got the worksheet, it should look something like that. If you haven't got a worksheet, it doesn't really matter. Please just have a pen and paper at this point. And what I want to do is get you thinking that whilst you're doing your research at the moment, whilst it could be, I don't know, that you're going onto a university website, it could be you're going through Unifrog, it could be that you're going onto the UCAS website, or to maybe have which university or anything like that, but anywhere where you're doing some research about courses, what I would recommend is you have this piece of paper with you, and you're making notes, and I'm going to show you what you should be focusing on in just a minute. So it doesn't really matter where you're doing your research or what part of that you're involved in, but it's more about what you note down, and that's what we'll get to. The other thing I should say is I'm sure that plenty of you are feeling a bit disadvantaged at the moment with regards to finding out about universities because you can't visit them, and whilst that is to some degree true, two things I'd like to say on that. One, even in normal times when you can visit them, a lot of the research that you'll be doing and a lot of the time you would spend doing what I'm about to show you, you would be doing online anyway in any normal time. And for years I've been teaching these techniques and say go online and do these things. And the other thing is just to be aware of the wealth of sort of virtual visit experiences that are available out there for universities. At the University of Bath, for example, we have, you can sign up for a one-to-one tour of the university, and you literally have a one-to-one experience, live experience with an ambassador, a current undergraduate, who'll talk you around and show you around. And so, you know, there are, as best as possible, there are opportunities to still get quite close to the campuses and get a feel for that. So again, if you were involved in that kind of experience, I would expect you to sort of try and take this piece of paper along anyway, and also carry on sort of making notes. So let's have a think about what you would be looking for and what you're focusing on. The things to focus on are kind of threefold. When you're looking at courses, think about the knowledge that you're going to be learning during those courses. Think about the content and consider to yourself, is there anything that you already know that you've already got some experience in? Because if you think about it, what is a good student, or you know, if you're applying for a job, what makes you the right person? Well, a bit of current understanding of what you're getting yourself in for, letting yourself into, sort of thing, is really important and really valuable. So demonstrating you've already got a bit of knowledge, a bit of understanding of the subject itself and of the various components, maybe modules and etc., is useful. Now, these things aren't required, and you need to be having a think as you're looking through your doing your research, thinking about when is it saying something is required and something is just desirable. And we can look at the language in just a minute to get an idea of that. But on the whole, you know, there aren't many required bits of knowledge for a degree, otherwise you wouldn't be going to a degree and learning it. But again, that doesn't mean to say that if you haven't got some experience and understanding of some of those subject areas, you shouldn't be selling that as part of your personal statement. The other thing to look for when, and again, we're going to look at a website in a minute, the other thing to look out for is not just the knowledge and content, but is the skills that are involved in the course. And again, if you're able to demonstrate you've already started learning some of these skills and developing some of these skills, then again, that puts you in good stead. It shows that you are maybe going to be able to hit the ground running and you're prepared. So it's those two elements when you're doing your research, you should be thinking about skills and knowledge. And then the third one you should be making a note of basically kind of areas of the course that are of interest to you, things that make you kind of really excited. Now that might be a skill, that might be, I don't know, a teaching method. It could be the fact that you get to spend a lot of time in labs. I don't know, whatever it is, but you know, look at the actual content of the courses and think to yourself, what is it that kind of really floats your boat? What is it that interests you? So I'm just going to open a web page, the Bath web page, and I'm going to hope it opens immediately on the screen. It's just taking its time. Bear with me a minute. And what I'm going to do, I'll talk through. So what I would like to do is I'm going to talk through this web page, and it's one of our courses. If it finally comes up. Hang on. Jane, can you see the web page there?
Hi, Sam. Yes, I can. Yeah.
Oh, okay, let me find the course I'm looking for.
Yeah,
So
that's fine.
we're going to go, here it is, it's come up now finally. Economics and politics. So imagine you were interested in this course and you went onto our webpage and looking at this. But again, as I said, you know, whether this could be you're in a virtual experience chatting to an ambassador or one of our staff, it could be you're in Unifrog or which university, wherever you're doing your research and getting your information from. You want to be thinking about knowledge, skills, and areas of interest. So let's just have a look for a second. It's straight off the bat on these things. It's going to talk about the sort of overall general course and what it's about. So looking here, you've got, you will develop an understanding of government and society through core concepts such as power, justice, conflict, etc. Now, it may, if you're thinking about studying economics and politics, chances are that you perhaps have already started, you know, you're already learning one of the humanities subjects, and that you might, if you're a historian, if you did GCSE history, there is no doubt that you would have looked at some of those things, such as power and justice, perhaps even sovereignty. If you're studying politics, international relationships, sociology, any of those sorts of subjects, you will have some experience in knowing about those subjects. So at this stage, you would simply note down on that piece of paper, oh, right, okay, at Bath, you'd have one piece of paper for each university, I would have thought, for each course. You would write down, you know, power, justice, conflict, these kinds of things are required, or a knowledge of them. Sorry, not required, but desirable, I should say. And then if you continue down a bit more, you'll develop strong analytical skills. So again, right up front, it starts talking about the knowledge and the skills that you'll be developing. And again, you could write this down, or analytical skills, they would be desirable. Understanding of the institutional UK global context. Again, now obviously you don't want to write down the whole web page, but you start making notes on these key things. Important places to look are things like the course structure, because that will give you even more minute detail about what's involved. Now, again, we're not going to expect you to have knowledge of these areas, but you might have some experience. So it's worth writing a few things down and having a look. Another thing that's worth looking at is beyond the academic elements of the course. So if there are placements or study abroad elements in the course, have a look there and see what they are developing, what they're planning to develop as part of that. So you'll see this, for example, if you were to come to Bath in economics and politics and went on a placement, you'd develop such skills as teamwork, planning and problem solving. So again, if you've got experience of those things, that's going to make you more desirable. So again, you would simply note those down. These are desirable elements. I'm just trying to think, there's one more area that I would like you to also look at, and that is looking at right at the end, you might find some information on, ours is down here, on the requirements. This isn't true of every university, they're all going to always lay things out exactly the same, but most are going to have somewhere, they're going to have the entry requirements written down. And again, here at Bath, we're very upfront. We say exactly what it is that we're looking for in a personal statement, and the kind of things that we would want you to demonstrate, such as enthusiasm for your degree. So you make notes of this knowledge, these skills, these kind of added qualities that we're looking for, and write them all down at this stage. So you end up with something like this. So I just scribbled these down earlier from that particular web page, and obviously I didn't go over all of these now, but it does come out that, you know, on the economic side, maths and statistics, you know, knowledge of, you know, good understanding of maths, and skills with statistics, understanding of government, the breadth of study, things like that, all were really important. And noticed I wrote down a few bits of areas of knowledge that would be important. Now, yours would be a lot more detailed than this, but you get the idea. So what I'd like you to do very, very quickly, just take 1 minute to do, is have a think about your course that you're interested in applying to, or a course. You might not know exactly which you are, but perhaps you've got a general idea. And just think to yourself at the moment, could you just write down 1 or 2 things that you think would be kind of desirable qualities, whether it be skills or part of knowledge or whatever, that you think might be useful for that course. And if you want to chuck in a few into the chat, if you're not sure, I'm sure Jane will be able to tell you if she thinks you're on the right line or not. Okay, so hopefully you've got a couple of things. Now, I appreciate that's just a guess, is sort of off the top of your mind, top of your thoughts. Whereas what I'm suggesting is you don't really do it that way. You do it as part of your research. You really go to the horse's mouth and get the detail to find exactly what are the sort of essential and desirable qualities we're looking for. Okay. Oh, sorry. Before we move on to this, so what I want us to do now, so that's stage one, which you should be doing when you are doing your research, and then eventually a few months from now, you've done your research, you've written all this down, and you've got a really good sense of the courses that you're applying for and what we're looking for in students to do well in those courses. And then you're going to be thinking to yourself, okay, so how do I put this all into a personal statement? And what I want to talk about now, this next little section, is just sort of gets you thinking about what that might look like and thinking about how you should use these notes to kind of approach that process. Okay, so it's going to go back a sec. The common thing when people are teaching about how to do a personal statement, they'll say you need a section on this, a section on that, a section on the other thing. Well, that's how things used to be done a lot more. But I think over time, certainly to get into competitive universities, which you as Sarah learners should definitely be thinking about, and that is where you're at with your learning. You need to be standing out a bit beyond that. And it's this targeted research method that I just explained that will help you be able to write a more effective personal statement than simply saying, right, I need a section on personal, on wider reading, I need a section on my work experience, etc. You need to be far more targeted than that. But the process I just showed you will allow you to be so, because you would have found out exactly what the courses you're applying for are looking for and made a note of them. So the next stage, what I'm going to talk about is how you go from those notes to actually building up paragraphs that are really strong and effective in a personal statement and show you off. But there's a bit of a stage just before that, and that is thinking about where you have experience of the things that you've just been making a note of. So if you've got worksheet 2, which is really just a blank piece of paper more than anything else, so if you haven't got worksheet 2, it's not the end of the world, but you have a please get pen and paper again. What I want you to do is think about writing down, so that the next exercise, and you would do this whilst you're building up your notes on worksheet 1 over the next few weeks and months. I would also be writing this down on worksheet 2. It's just writing down elements of your life where you have experience of those things. So for example, let's say I wrote down passion for the subject. That was something that was mentioned. It was mentioned on our website about showing enthusiasm for that subject. So I then, on worksheet 2, I would say to myself, okay, well, where have I gathered a passion for this subject? Maybe I did some wider reading. It's as simple as that, very, very simple. Now, what I'd like you to do now, this is sort of a second little exercise, take the thing that you wrote down for your course, and then next to it, simply write down an example of somewhere in your life, and it could be anything. It could be from a Saturday job, it could be a hobby, it could be something you're studying at school, or it could be something you do in your family life, anything at all, and write down an area of your life that demonstrates that you have an experience of that particular element that you wrote down. If you haven't written anything down on worksheet 1, give these a go, because these are very common things that come up in most degrees that are required. Maybe you've got some experience or 1 or 2 of these. Okay, so this process, so I want to keep sort of reinforcing it, but this process, worksheet 1, worksheet 2, is something you'll be doing over the next few weeks and months as you're doing your research around courses. And so you end up with 2 lists, but they're very connected. You've got 1, which is all the detail from the course, the desirables and expected elements of the course that we're looking for, and list 2, which is a list of examples, essentially, of where you may have developed some of these skills and attributes. So I've just written down a couple of possible examples that you might have put. And then you're going to start moving to the stage of, right, here's where I'm going to be sitting and actually got to start writing this. And again, before you start going, oh, well, I need a paragraph on all my work experience, I need a paragraph on this and that. It's from here that it's from these 2 worksheets that you start developing your writing. And there's a method I'm going to teach you, which basically I want to try and demonstrate how you need to go from taking those examples and making them relevant. And I'm going to show you how you can make them relevant in a paragraph, so effective paragraph writing. Let's look at their relevance first. Okay, so simply writing down a list, like it would look a bit like worksheet 2, of all the areas where you've gained the knowledge and skills on worksheet 1, is not good enough, but it is an important part of the process. So what I'm going to teach you in terms of building up the paragraphs, essentially you want to start with those 2 elements. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going to go back to that. So these four coloured elements are the things that we're really looking for. An awareness of requirements of the course and the course content. Well, you cannot have that awareness, you cannot demonstrate that awareness unless you've gone off and found those things out, which is where the research comes in. An understanding of the skills required. Again, you're not going to be able to have an understanding if you haven't identified what they are. So again, worksheet 1. Those are both all about worksheet 1. An example of where and how you've experienced, you have experience of developing these skills already, or this knowledge already. Again, this is worksheet 2. This is you identifying those things. So the yellow, green and blue there have all come from just those two worksheets. And then your enthusiasm to develop skills further in the university context. This is something slightly beyond and is the next technique. But the first 3 elements of that all come from that bit of research and the 2 worksheets that you should be developing. And then you can start making these effective paragraphs. Right, what I would like to, sorry, actually, I'm going to run the first bit, on this bit first. Okay, so this is a summary of what I was just saying, really. So another thing I want to point out just before we move on to the writing element of it is that some of you might be thinking, well, what if I note down all this stuff and I realize I don't have it? I don't have any of the knowledge. I don't have any of the experience. I don't have any skills. Well, one, I would say it would be impossible if you're studying, you know, a level 3 course. You will be developing some of the knowledge and skills ready for these courses. That's how they're designed. But above and beyond that, you probably have other opportunities to still pick up and still develop some of the skills that we will be looking for. For example, you might want to do some wider reading and get the knowledge around some of the topics that will be coming up. Justice, power, sovereignty, whatever we were looking up there. There's plenty of things out there you could start reading around those topics. You could do, if you've got an opportunity to do the skills element of the Welsh Bac or an extended project qualification, doing these individual research projects gives you an opportunity to pick a topic that you know will be coming up that might be beneficial and develop important research skills. It might be that you have an opportunity to do something with a university, some of our university outreach, and if you go online to Bath and to all the other universities, you know, that you're looking at, have a look at their outreach pages, see if you can get involved. For example, we run regular public webinars every Thursday that develop skills, particular research, well, skills and knowledge, those kinds of things. So look at what's available and to see if it's important to you. So don't think to yourself, oh, I haven't got any of this, I'm not going to be able to you know, to apply. Not at all. There's still opportunities to develop these skills. And on also, I'd also say is, you know, go to your teachers, go to your friends, go to those that know you and say, where have I developed some of this? Because you might think, you might not think of it, but then they might say, oh, well, don't you remember you were part of this club or that club, or when we went on a geography field trip, we developed these skills. You might not remember it, but somebody else might. So share your experiences of what you require and see if someone else can come up with some ideas about it to help you. And that's all on worksheet 2, writing down those experiences. Okay. Oh, hang on. Just pause that. So the next step I want to do, so you've got worksheet 1, worksheet 2, you've seen the important parts of a paragraph and moving towards that. What I want to show you now is how you can move from those 2 worksheets to that paragraph. And it's this technique that we suggest called the ABCs.
Sam, we don't appear to have any sound with that.
Oh. Okay. That's
I
odd.
think there was an issue with one of the slides further back, you know, the one with the target
Mhm.
going through. Someone else commented about there was no sound, so I'm not quite sure what's
The-
happened to that.
The one on the target didn't have any sound.
Okay,
but,
that's
I
fine.
will. Shall
But
I just
this-
shall I reshare? Let's try resharing.
Yeah, there's no sound on this one though.
Okay. Apologies. Apologies, everyone. I will. One sec. Thanks, Jen.
Joys of virtual presentation.
Okay, I'm going to try this again, hopefully.
So how do you achieve this?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Trying to put pen to paper, we recommend a method called the ABCs. These stand for activity, what you did, in other words, examples from worksheet 2, benefit, what you learned, the connected relevant skills or knowledge identified in worksheet 1, and course, a sentence or two to make an explicit link between the activity benefit and the course. You can do this in many different ways. You can express your knowledge of a certain requirement, as in this example, or you can talk about what you are looking forward to, or perhaps you can mention how a course will allow for the continued development of skills or building of knowledge which you consider to be valuable to your development.
Okay, so the approach is the ABCs, and you can see A and B are worksheet 1, worksheet 2. It's the worksheet 2 is the experience that you've had, worksheet 1 being the facts that you've picked from doing your research. So this way you really know that you're targeting, honing in on exactly the things that we're looking for in a student. I'm going to give you just another example of this. So what I would suggest you do is you simply write out a sentence from worksheet 2. First of all, write something down, but write it as a sentence. I took part in a geography field trip, part of my A-level. Then underneath, or next to it, continuing on, sorry, as if it's a paragraph. This would be, you then refer to the skills that this teams up with in worksheet 1, skills and or knowledge, that is, whatever it is that you're demonstrating. I develop research and recording skills, so keeping it simple. Then the third element is this course, that's when you have to go away and be a bit creative and think to yourself, well, how does that, how do these two things have an impact on the course that I'm applying to? Why are they relevant? And again, you would have got some understanding of that from your research, but here's my version of it. Oh, sorry, I'm expanding as well, I should say. So I've said this, I've done this by practicing observation and questioning techniques. So when I'm doing my research, I would also note that these techniques and these practices were perhaps important. I might have even found out that GIS as a recording tool was something that's important. And again, so it's basically name dropping things that I've learned and that I know from my worksheet 1 are relevant to the course. And then again, I make that connection to what I'm hoping to do in the future. So you've got the 3 elements. You've got the A, the B, and the B sort of expanded on, and then the C, tying it closely to the course. The opportunity to continue to develop and apply these skills as part of a research team, because I know that that's what I'll be doing on my course, is the one thing I'm looking forward to. So this isn't yet a paragraph. And again, once you've got your 2 worksheets, you shouldn't be going, okay, well, how do I fit this into a paragraph about extended writing or research skills or whatever? You shouldn't be there yet. What you should first be doing is going, right, how do I put these into these ABCs? I'm just going to write a load of these ABCs, have quite a few of them. You might have 10, 15, 20 different versions of these things. And then you might start realizing that they are connected. So let's have a look at another one here. So that's the one that I've just done. But let's say I wrote another one completely separately, but it happens to use the same example of the geography field trip. Because, you don't have to have a new example for absolutely everything throughout your personal statement. You don't need loads of examples. You know, you're of a young age where you've had quite a life, I'm sure, but it's you're not expected to have done everything and been everywhere, etc. So using the same example is fine as long as the example is relevant. So here I've used the same example, but I've used a completely different desirable skill or piece of knowledge that I've identified from my research. I've written as a part of a trip I volunteered for as a group leader. So leadership is what this is about. I had in this role I had to communicate team goals. So communication is what this is about. So those are the things that would be on worksheet 1: the communication, the leadership, that kind of thing. And then I might sit back to myself and say, okay, well, I've got this geography field trip. And during that time, I developed all these team working, communication, leadership skills, which I know are important because I've written them down when I did my research. I've also learned all these academic skills, observation, questioning, recording skills, which I know are important because I wrote those down when I did my research. I'm actually starting to get a bit of a paragraph here. I'm identifying the paragraph not from saying, I need to do something on research skills, but it's popping up from my own personal experience. It's popping up from my research. And I'm realizing that actually together, this makes quite a nice paragraph. And all I've done there is kind of rewrite it in a way to include all of those things around this one example of a geography field trip, or as geography A-level, sorry. And as you'll see there, it's these elements here. I volunteered to be a group leader. I got my communication skills. I did these various tasks, research, recording, observations, etc. I packed it all in, but I didn't do this from the point of view of, right, I need something on geography. I'm going to write something on geography. I started with the knowledge and skills. I found my own experiences. I did the ABCs and then realized there was this connection. So that's the process that we really, really recommend you do, and it will make it a lot easier for you in terms of actually putting pen to paper, but also it will make sure that you are really focused on the things, because you'd have got this all from your research. You'll be really focused on the things that we're looking for. Okay. I'm just going to finish. I've got sort of 5 more minutes I want of this, and then we can have a bit of question Q&A. What I've just spoken about really is going to be the core elements of the personal statement. As we were saying, it's about a page long of A4, and you're going to end up with maybe 3, 4, maybe sort of 4, maybe 5 sort of central paragraphs that you know are going to be relevant. And again, all dictated by your research, all dictated by your own personal experience. Likelihood is that you will end up with a paragraph on your current studies or your studies during school time. Likelihood is you will end up with a paragraph on sort of wider reading or volunteering or whatever it might be, because those are the experiences that you've had that are relevant, but that isn't the place where you should start from. Then you've got these other paragraphs, which are the introduction and the conclusion. And there isn't loads to say on these, to be honest. I've got these questions here. I can't remember if I sent this out as a worksheet, but do refer to this slide if you're coming back to this. Because the best way to write an introduction, as far as I'm concerned, is really to physically write an answer to one of those 2 questions. So what was the moment you became interested in the subject you're applying for? You know, what was it? What was that thing in your life that was really interested, that really made you think, wow? It might have been something that was only a few weeks ago, something that you're currently studying. It might have been something when you were younger. Excuse me. Avoiding cliches. Just be honest. What was the thing what is it about, what is it that really interests you? And what is it about that moment that caused the interest? Now, I did history and art history many years ago, and I know the exact moment I really got a big buzz out of history, and it was actually, it sounds cliche, but it is what it is. I was at school, and we were, as a primary school, we were actually all went into a school assembly to watch the lifting of the Mary Rose as the archaeologists were pulling this historic ship, this is Henry VIII ship, out of the sea. And this was a big moment, and schools all around the country were stopped to go and see this thing. And that was a big moment for me. And I don't remember if I ever put that in my personal statement, but I might, if I was doing it now, think about writing something along those lines. Or I might want to be slightly more academic, and I would focus around something that really gave me a buzz, perhaps in history during my studies, and what it was about either the subject or the topic areas that I really liked. And then, so this starting to lead into the second question here. What is it about the subject that you're applying for you're passionate about, and why? Is there something that that it leads to that you're really interested in? Is there something about the concepts involved that you're really interested in? But ultimately, those two questions are very personal, and that's the point. This is a personal statement. And right at the beginning, it's quite important to sort of, I think, be fairly honest about who you are and what you are, and talk about your passions and your interests. It only needs to be sort of probably about 4 or 5 sentences long, but it needs to hit those particular topic areas. Now, when you come to a conclusion, you are summing things up, but you don't want to just repeat everything that you've just said. One thing that you might want to do is start thinking about everything that you've just said and how it leads on to the future. It might be that you've got a particular career in mind, and that degree is a stepping stone to that career. And I think if that is the case, it's a nice thing to mention. By studying these things, I will be able to develop X, Y, and Z, and go on to fulfill my career as this. And I think that's absolutely fine. It gives the person reading it a sense of your long-term planning and vision, and an understanding of the relevance of the course and where it fits in with your own personal development. And that is really what university is very much about. Or if you haven't got this long-term career vision, which is probably the majority of you, that's absolutely fine. But talk about what it is that you've been sort of, what it is during the course that you are particularly looking forward to developing. I think that is really what it comes to. How does this tie into what you've been saying through your personal statement about the passion for the subject, really? And maybe mentioning what it is you're really particularly looking forward to developing. And that's another way. So it's just focusing around the actual study itself. That's probably where I want to end it for now. So we've got, I'm trying to think, just over 10 minutes left. I'm hoping that some of you have put in some questions or have got some questions. If you have, please spend a minute or two firing some into the chat, and we can take it from there. Jane, are you all right to have a look at the chat?
Yep, I'm just going to go through. We've got a few questions that have come in gradually, Sam, as you were going through. So cool. I will start with the first one, because some of these questions were ones that I thought other people would want to ask as well. So this one, 5 other people also thumbs up, so they would obviously like to know the answer. So the question is, if different universities have different course structures or different teaching styles for the same course, how do you create a personal statement that satisfies both of their desirable qualities?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's what you'll find is, let's say you've got a course like let's say engineering, an engineering course, and in some places it's more theoretical and in some places it's more practical. I think that's what you're sort of moving at. What you'll find is that there is still large areas of overlap. There is no one course that's going to be all theoretical or all practical. So you need to focus on the areas of commonality. So when you do your research, look at the skills that will be desirable in both. Look at the knowledge and content areas that are involved in both, and focus on them essentially. So it's looking for areas of commonality.
Brilliant, thank you. So the next question, 6 other people also wanted to know the answer to this one. Why can you only submit one personal statement tailored to one type of course? What if you aren't sure what subject you want to do and would rather apply for a variety of courses and then decide after A-levels which course you want to take?
To be honest, the frank answer is you need to be more decided than that. I know it's really tough, and I don't mean to make light of it. It's really hard, but the reality is that universities, especially competitive universities, universities that, you know, as a SERA learner, you really have the opportunity to get into, they will have an expectation that you've got a sort of real drive and passion for that particular subject. So when it comes to the point of writing a personal statement, even if inside you're not 100% committed, you got to show that you are. It's that sales pitch. What I would have thought is that by the time you're writing your personal statement, hopefully through the research methods that I suggested, you will have kind of been able to narrow it down to 1 or 2 subjects at most. If you do have 2 separate subjects, and let's say in the end, because you've got 5 courses you can apply for, let's say 3 of them are languages and 2 of them are something else. Again, the only way that you can really write an effective personal statement, because the same personal statement goes to all 5 different institutions, is to look at those areas of commonality. So whether it be, so just like in the previous answer, in this case, it's a totally different subject rather than the same subject taught in a different way, but you need to be looking at areas of commonality, communication skills, you know, I don't know, management, sort of leadership and management, those sorts of things. Look, you might have to go a bit sort of broader and more abstract, but the reality is you're making it, I know it's difficult, but you are making it more difficult for yourself to have a successful application to a competitive, really competitive university.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Sam. So another question here for you. How do you combine 2 paragraphs to target a joint honours course?
It's funny actually, because it's the same answer as I've probably just been saying. It's again, it's looking at those sort of common skills and those common areas of commonality and overlap. If you've got like with that economics and politics, I mean that's a sort of a combined honours sort of approach. As you're going through, I really wasn't actually paying attention to whether they were skills around politics or skills around economics. I was just simply writing down what skills and what knowledge and which qualities are relevant. And then when I'm therefore writing my answers, if a paragraph, let's say like my geography one I used, if the first part is relevant to the politics bit and the second part is relevant to the economics bit, it doesn't really matter, because the person reading it, what they're seeing is, oh, this person has got the skills, has got the knowledge, has got some, you know, understanding of the course. They're not really thinking compartmentalized in that way. They're just looking overall at the skills and content that you've got.
Thank you. That's great. So this is the last question I think we've got at the moment. So what is your top tip when it comes to standing out to top universities?
I think it's very difficult to give one top tip. The main thing is to be relevant, and that's all based on that research. So if you go in and you're really looking at the detail of our courses, you're writing down and you're really looking at the knowledge and skills that we're looking for. If you have made an effort to speak to our academics and our staff, and I know that's difficult now, but as I say, there are these virtual experiences that you can get involved in, or if you're attending university outreach or even questions, you know, times like this, and you've spoken to people and really, and you know, you should be saying, if you're having a one-to-one trip at the University of Bath and you're being shown around by an ambassador, okay, even if it's virtually, you should be asking them, you know, if they're on your course, and you can try and request that they might be on the course you're interested in, you should be asking, you know, what are the skills you're using? What are the qualities that you're constantly having to demonstrate, and making a note of that. So if you've really done good research, then your personal statement will be relevant, and it's that relevance that really is probably the most important thing for competitive universities.
Okay, that's great. And another question that just popped up is, how would you develop experience for social science subjects like criminology and psychology?
I think social sciences are where your personal statement is going to focus quite a lot on is looking at the development of the academic skills. Well, I think it's true of all, but the academic skills that are required. So for those, you are going, and again, each course might be slightly different, but fairly generally, I could say you're going to need to have very good group and communication skills because they often work in those subjects and groups. You're going to need to have to demonstrate some good level of independence and independent learning. You're going to need to have some very good kind of research and essay writing skills. So the places you can be developing those are in your current subjects, but also through doing wider reading. You'll be developing a further knowledge, as well as, because wider reading doesn't involve just going off and reading things. You've got to research what you're going to read that's relevant. You need to be able to say, well, I took this topic and I went off and found out this thing, that thing, and that thing, because and it's the effort of doing that and the process of doing that also demonstrates some independence. If you have an opportunity to, like the skills part of the Welsh Bac, doing an independent research project, you're gonna, we have, for example, a MOOC. I don't know if you know about MOOCs. They're massive open online courses. They are free online courses. If you go to the website called FutureLearn, or if you go through Unifrog, I think as well, you can get a list of MOOCs. If you go onto the Bath website and type in MOOC, MOOC, you'll get a list of the ones we've developed. We've got one on there for the Welsh Bac to develop skills for people who are taking the Welsh Bac. We've got one on there for extended project qualification. You can say in your personal statement, I went on, I bothered to get off and do these things and develop these skills. So I think about the for the humanities, think about the academic skills that are involved, but research, essay writing, wider reading, those are really, really key. And then look at the learning styles that are mentioned on the web pages for the different courses you're looking at. And I bet you'll see a lot of things like communication, presentation skills, group work. And again, think about where you have an opportunity to develop those, even if you haven't yet. Think about what you can do.
That's great. So I'm just posting in the link to the Bath webpage for the MOOCs as well.
Thanks, Shane.
So there's another question that's come in is, other universities have different requirements for personal statements. How can you balance the personal statement when their advice contradicts each other? I think that's quite a good question, actually.
Yeah, it is a good question. I think at some point you can't do all things for all people, and you have to say to yourself, right, well, I'm very interested in both these courses and both these universities. I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and try and do the best I can to mediate somewhere in between, really. There's no university that I can think of that would require something so different, unless you are looking at a very different course and a totally different style of university. And then you might be thinking to yourself, well, if I'm not one or the other, am I in the right place? Is this the right thing for me? So it's that really. First of all, considering which is right for you, which is, can you stand out to one or the other? But if you absolutely are going for both, and they are quite different, do that overlapping, do that compromising that I mentioned, and just have to bite the bullet and say, you can't do it, all things for all people. There are. I appreciate. I'm not here to talk, about other universities and institutions, but particularly I know many of you will be thinking about Oxbridge, and I think the only caveat that I would say to all of the things I've said today is that if you're doing a personal statement for Oxbridge, I would definitely advise you speak with them directly to see how they might change their approach to what I have said today. I'm absolutely convinced that they would be promoting the research methods that I'm talking about, but the emphasis that they finally want from the paragraphs, so whereas I'm saying sort of develop it from your experience, from the paragraphs that's done from your research, that might be slightly different from what they would want for the final thing. But saying that, I worked for many years in a sixth form where as I was in charge of the Oxbridge applicants, and I advised them very much the things I've been advising you today. And so some got interviews and some got in. So go and have a chat with them to be 100% sure, because I don't work for them. But at the same time, I wouldn't have thought it'd be too different for that.
Okay, that's lovely. And on
Mm.
kind of in the same theme as well, someone has asked about a medical personal statement, if that's any different.
Yeah, apologies. Again, this is another area I can't give great advice because the University of Bath we don't have medicine courses. You will have opportunities through Seren to talk to people from Oxbridge and our other colleagues at our other universities where they do talk about medicine. If I can do a quick plug, I hope that's all right. Sean is in the background. We're going to be doing, we did this last year, we did a conference with Exeter, Cardiff and ourselves, and Oxford also got involved. We ran it for the Seren learners. We're running one. We haven't got a plan with Oxford at the moment, but that could happen. I'm sure we'll be doing a very similar thing later in the year for all you guys, and you'll have opportunities to speak to people from those institutions, Exeter and Cardiff, both with medical courses. I would say, again, the emphasis, the research skills, the starting with the course and the research would be the same method that you would employ. Because again, it's all about relevance. It's all about being relevant to the courses.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I don't think there's any more questions at the moment, unless anyone's got any other burning things they'd like to put to Sam.
I see in the chat, I've just been able to get through to the chat.
The link I put into the MOOC apparently is not working, which is a bit weird. So I'll
let's have a look, see if I can find it.
Yeah, it says page not found when you go onto the university webpage, which is a bit weird.
I think if that is the case, apologies to that. I had a bit of an issue with copying in a link earlier. I might suggest if you just go onto the website and type in MOOCs, MOOC, our list of MOOCs will come up. That might be another way if that link doesn't sort itself out later. Can we try it again, Jane?
Yeah, I'm just going to post in the one for the university webpage, and then let's have another look at. I'll try it one more time. It should work. I'm not quite sure why.
I can
open online courses. Let me try this one and see if let's try this one. Instead, guys, and see if that works. Oh, we've got another question as well for you.
I'm just putting in another link, guys, that is out to our outreach resource hub. That's got lots of talks and workshops that, again, if you reference the fact that you've done these talks and workshops, these are really helpful. And I believe as well, it's got another link to that MOOC page through that. So with a bit of luck,
there are lots of different ones on the web page to get from one place to another with some random links. So yeah. So I've got another question here for you, Sam.
Thanks.
What would you recommend incorporating into your personal statement if it's for criminal study / criminology?
I would say that I'm not the right one to answer directly. This is what I would call research. So where you've got to get the answers for that is going onto the web pages, looking at our criminology page, looking at the content that's involved, looking at the skills that are involved, and thinking to yourself, well, where have I developed those skills, or where have I an opportunity to develop those skills over the next few months? Also by, getting in contact. And another thing you shouldn't be afraid to do is looking up on the website pages. When you got like a criminology course, there'll be an email to the department or the admissions team within that department, and just write to them and say, what are the key things that you guys are looking for? What elements help people stand out? It's their job to give you some advice directly around those specific courses. However, loosely, I can say, it goes back to those research skills, that wider reading, those communication skills, but specifics, that's how relevant you need to be. And I don't have that level of detail of all the different courses that we have, but to be that relevant, you need to go online and get that detail.
Okay. And there's a final question that's come in, which I think you've kind of covered already, is what advice would you give for choosing between two fairly different subjects?
Yeah, so I think just to reiterate again, you know, ideally you wouldn't be going down that approach, but if that's where you find yourself, then you know that's a valid thing. It's your university course, it's fine, but and unfortunately the application process isn't necessarily on your side. But have a look at the common areas, and you actually will find, you know, that when you're looking at even quite different degrees, that there are many skills that are just generally required, you know, for success in higher education. You know, they're going to be all asking about passion about the subject, so being able to demonstrate that you've gone above and beyond the classroom to get involved in elements of those, you know, that subject, whatever it might be, whether even if it's sort of like visiting museums or reading this, or you know, getting a job that's related to those things or something like that. Or it might be, again, skills, concentrating on skills and thinking about the relevant ones: independent learning skills, communication skills, group working skills, leadership, because they are pretty relevant to many higher education courses. So that would be, again, my advice on that.
Brilliant. Someone's just posted that they now can't hear anything, so I've just checked to see whether anyone else has got that same issue, whether it's if it's just that one person. No one else has written to say that they can't hear anything, so hopefully everyone can still hear you. So there are no other questions in the Q&A at the moment, Sam.
Okay.
So
guys, just say this, as we were mentioning earlier, this is recorded. Hopefully my voice is being recorded, and if you couldn't hear this last part, then it will be on the recording.
No, it's okay. The person said it's okay, they've sorted it now, so maybe maybe they turned something off by mistake, so that's okay. I think they can all hear you, so that's okay.
Yeah, and hi Jane and Sam, it's Sian back
Hi,
online
Sian.
here.
Hi, Sian.
Hi.